The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, 2012, argues that we undervalue introverts in our culture, doing them and society a disservice. When asked why she wrote the book, Paine answered, "For the same reason that Betty Friedan published The Feminine Mystique in 1963. Introverts are to extroverts what women were to men at that time. Second-class citizens with gigantic amounts of untapped talent. Our schools, workplaces, and religious institutions are designed for extroverts, and many introverts believe that there is something wrong with them and that they should try to pass as extroverts." There is even more intolerance for anti-authoritarians, a highly diverse group whose members include people from all genders, races, ethnicities, sexual preferences, and personalities. In 2012, I wrote an article, "Why Anti-Authoritarians Are Diagnosed as Mentally Ill," titled on some websites as, "Would We Have Drugged Up Einstein?" And I continue to receive emails from people feeling validated by it, stating that they believe their anti-authoritarianism or their child's has resulted in mental illness diagnoses. In the 1950s and 1960s, the horrors inflicted by Nazi Germany were still on the minds of many Americans, and the 1950 book, The Authoritarian Personality, which psychopathologized authoritarian personalities, became popular. In the early 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram's studies revealed a frightening obedience among Americans to illegitimate authority, and this became a cause for concern. I will detail these and other examinations of authoritarianism and anti-authoritarianism, as well as controversies surrounding the authoritarian personality and the anti-authoritarian personality. By the 1980s, U.S. society had changed. In 1980, Americans elected former actor Ronald Reagan to the presidency. Reagan had previously acquired an authoritarian strongman reputation by putting down student revolts as governor of California. By the mid-1980s, the Democrats, wanting to appear as tough as the Republicans, strongly supported anti-crime legislation that has contributed to the United States having the highest incarceration rate in the world, caused in large part by hypocritical drug laws. In my mental health profession during the 1980s, it was noncompliance rather than compliance that became increasingly pathologized. The American Psychiatric Association, APA, politically in step with U.S. society, revised its diagnostic manual, the DSM-3, 1980, to include oppositional defiant disorder, ODD, for noncompliant kids who do not engage in criminal behaviors. The APA classifies ODD as one kind of disruptive behavior disorder. Disruptive behavior disorders are now the most common classification of children medicated with antipsychotics, among the highest grossing classes of drugs in the United States today. The U.S. antipsychotic drug explosion is largely the result of their use on non-psychotic vulnerable populations, especially foster children, the elderly in nursing homes, and inmates in prisons and jails, as a relatively inexpensive way to subdue and manage these groups. Between 1978 and 1985, I was in graduate school and in training to become a clinical psychologist, and my embarrassment with the mental health profession increased throughout my schooling and internships. I struggled as to whether I should quit or continue so as to get my PhD badge. Ironically, this stinkin' badge, which lacks legitimate authority for me, has provided me with credibility for the mainstream media that for the most part bases its assessment of authorities solely on their badges. There are certainly societies less free and more oppressive than the United States. However, what makes life difficult for U.S. anti-authoritarians is that Americans are indoctrinated to believe that their society celebrates anti-authoritarianism, and so they are less prepared for the reality of anti-authoritarian life than others who have not been so indoctrinated. Anti-authoritarian